Imagine standing in the damp, freezing dark of an abandoned subway tunnel.
Oh, man.
You're staring at this rusted iron door, and you suddenly realize that the only way to make your meeting on time, the only way, is to violently rip out your own teeth.
Just horrifying.
Right. Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a first-hand survivor's narrative that you, our listener, shared with us.
And we really need to emphasize right at the top here, this is not some, campfire ghost story.
No, not at all.
Or a piece of urban fantasy. This is a visceral, deeply unsettling account of survival, desperation, and, well, the unthinkable permanent choices someone was willing to make deep beneath the city streets just to take a shortcut.
Exactly. And our mission today is to trace the exact chronological path of this nightmare. We're going to start from the blinding panic of a modern commute and end with an agonizing physical sacrifice.
Yeah, and to really understand the sheer gravity of that sacrifice, we have to recognize that this account is fundamentally a psychological autopsy.
A psychological autopsy. I like
Yeah.
that phrasing.
Right, because we are dissecting the concept of desperation itself. We're looking at what happens to the human brain when it is backed into a corner by the clock.
The ticking clock. It changes everything.
It does. It reveals the profound, often hidden costs of deciding that the normal rules of reality they no longer apply to you because your personal emergency demands it.
So I want you to think about your own life for a second. Think about the lengths you've considered going to when time is running out.
We've all been there.
We have. Because every nightmare begins in the real world. Before we get to, pulsing iron doors and hidden subterranean entities, we have to start where this commuter started.
Which is trapped in the suffocating atmosphere of late-night city gridlock.
Yeah, just staring down what the source material describes as a life-altering deadline.
That phrase right there, life-altering deadline, that is the ignition switch for everything that follows.
It really is.
We need to dissect the biology of that pressure, I think.
Yeah.
Because in the modern world, the human nervous system is continuously tricked.
Tricked how?
It
Chemically.
Exactly. Evolutionarily speaking, our fight or flight response, that massive dump of adrenaline and cortisol, it was designed to save us from immediate physical predator.
Oh, well, the wolf chasing you.
A wolf, a hostile tribe, a literal fire. But today, our brains deploy that exact same survival cocktail for abstract social threats.
Oh, missing a flight.
Missing a flight, failing a career-defining interview, or
failing to reach a hospital bed in time.
Exactly. The brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, it genuinely cannot tell the difference between being eaten alive and experiencing utter social or financial ruin.
Wow. Okay, so when this commuter is sitting there in the gridlock, surrounded by the heat and the noise and the absolute paralysis of the city infrastructure, their body is literally reacting as if it is bleeding out.
Precisely. The text uses the word suffocating, right?
Yeah, suffocating atmosphere.
Right, and that's not just a description of a humid, crowded transit car. It's a literal physiological symptom of a panic attack.
A chest tightening.
The chest tightening, the breathing growing shallow.
That terrifying feeling that the walls are physically closing in on you.
Yeah, the gridlock is essentially a pressure cooker. It traps the individual, and it blocks all normal avenues of resolution.
Which is the worst feeling.
And when the normal pathways, the lit platform, the scheduled train, the map itself, when those are blocked, the human drive for self-preservation begins scanning for abnormal pathways.
It creates a state of extreme tunnel vision.
Exactly. The peripheral reality, the safety warnings, the sheer logic of staying with the herd, all of that goes completely dark.
Which perfectly explains how a rational person makes the entirely irrational choice to look for a path that isn't on the map.
They step past the warning tape.
Right. They leave the brightly lit tile of the station and venture into the dark.
Yeah.
But wait, hold on. I need to ground this in reality for a second because I'm struggling with this part.
Sure, go ahead.
The text explicitly states that they discover a non-existent platform beneath the rusted tracks.
Yes. Non-existent.
But, if someone is physically standing on a platform, it exists. So what are we actually dealing with here? Are we talking about a forgotten architectural layer of the city? Or has this intense, suffocating stress actually fractured the commuter's perception of reality? Are they hallucinating?
Well, it is entirely possible we are looking at a terrifying intersection of both things.
Both. Okay, unpack that for me.
Let's look at the history of urban transit infrastructure. Cities like New York, London, Paris, they are built on layers and layers of discarded history.
Right, the underground is ancient.
London has dozens of these ghost stations. They are fully constructed platforms and tunnels that were decommissioned decades ago, sealed off, and literally erased from public transit maps.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they erased them.
Oh, yeah. They are, for all functional intents and purposes, non-existent to the modern conscious city. But the physical concrete, the concrete remains.
So our desperate commuter manages to, like, slip through a cracked service door or maybe navigate a maintenance tunnel, and suddenly they're standing in a forgotten epoch of the city.
Exactly. But we also must consider the psychological alteration here.
Your panic attack, Rain.
Yes. When you detach from the shared reality of the gridlock, which is really a shared social contract of a commute, you cross a cognitive boundary.
So the stress changes what they're experiencing.
The survivor's altered, hyper-stressed state pushes them into a space where the rules of the surface world no longer apply, and the text highlights the rusted tracks. Rust is a profound sensory detail here.
Rust is a marker of time, right? It's a process of oxidation, of decay.
Exactly.
Because when you stand on a brightly lit transit platform, you look down at shining steel rails.
Yeah.
That shine tells you a train was just here and another one is coming.
The friction of the wheels keeps the steel polished.
It connects you to a schedule, to a civilization. But rusted tracks, that means friction hasn't occurred there in years, maybe decades.
It implies total, absolute abandonment.
Man, that is bleak.
And that realization of abandonment is the true threshold of their nightmare. Above ground in the gridlock, you might feel frustrated, you might feel trapped.
Sure, you're annoyed you're late.
But your safety is still largely guaranteed by the presence of others, by security cameras, by police.
By the gaze of society.
Exactly. Down on this non-existent platform, shrouded in rust and damp earth, that safety net is just gone.
The commuter has placed themselves in solitary confinement.
They have effectively walked off the mat. They're leaving themselves entirely vulnerable to whatever operates in the unmapped territory.
And what operates in that territory isn't passive. It's not just a dark tunnel they can sprint through to get to the other side.
No, the isolation of this forgotten station condenses into a singular physical barrier.
The text describes a rusted maintenance panel. We've all seen these on subway platforms, right?
Oh, yeah, everywhere.
They are painted that dull, institutional gray designed to just blend into the concrete, usually hiding circuit breakers or old plumbing or ventilation shafts.
The mundane, dead guts of the city.
Right. But our commuter, who is frantic to find this shortcut, pulls back the panel and discovers a heavy iron door.
A door that has absolutely no architectural reason to be there.
None at all.
A maintenance panel is a thin facade. It represents the fragile illusion of the rational world. But the heavy iron door behind it is a completely different kind of structure.
It's built to last.
It suggests containment. It suggests a boundary meant to keep something out, or more likely, keep something in.
And the detail that really unsettled me, the thing that elevated this from a skooky urban exploration story to pure, unadulterated horror, is a very specific sensory note the survivor gives us.
The humming.
Yes. The iron door isn't just cold metal. It hums with a low, rhythmic vibration.
Right.
When you read that, what does that indicate to you? Because, look, a transformer hums, old wiring buzzes.
Right.
But a rhythmic vibration, that implies a pulse.
It fundamentally changes the nature of the infrastructure. We assume the subterranean world is built of dead things, right?
Yeah.
Stone, steel, concrete.
Dead matter, yeah.
A continuous mechanical hum is a byproduct of modern electricity, but a rhythm, a rising and falling pulse, is biological.
I hate that.
It suggests respiration. It suggests a heartbeat. If we look at deep-sea submarines, the bulkheads are designed to withstand unimaginable, crushing pressure from the outside ocean.
Right.
This heavy iron door serves a similar purpose. It is a pressure valve holding back a massive, living anomaly beneath the city.
So put yourself in the survivor's shoes in that exact second. You've risked everything to bypass the traffic above. You pry open a rusted panel expecting to find, like, a dusty crawl space that might lead to another station.
A way out.
But instead, you are confronted with a massive iron door that is literally throbbing against your palm. The city above you isn't just built on dirt and bedrock. It is built on top of something that breathes.
The psychological terror here is firmly rooted in the concept of anticipation.
Anticipation.
Think about it. A locked door is merely an inanimate obstacle. It implies you lack a key, that's it.
Right.
But a door that pulses rhythmically implies an intelligence on the other side. It implies that your presence has been noted.
Oh man, that is so much worse.
The commuters thought they were outsmarting the passive environment of the city, but they've actually stumbled into a space that is actively waiting for them.
And it's not just waiting. It has terms.
Yes, the toll.
Which brings us to the most horrifying realization of the survivor's ordeal. This door is a toll gate,
Mm-hmm.
but it completely subverts our entire understanding of how a toll works.
Right.
The text introduces a gatekeeper, an unseen entity enforcing the rules of this shortcut, and it demands a calcium debt.
The phrasing there is just incredible.
The phrasing explicitly states the door is hungry for more than silver.
Hungry for more than silver. Let's really dissect the profound implications of that demand.
Let's do it.
In our surface world, silver, money, fiat currency, transit cards, it is a social construct. It is an agreed-upon system of trust.
Right. It only works because we all agree it has value.
Exactly. You hand over a token and society grants you passage. Whether it's a toll booth, a subway turnstile, or paying cab fare, money represents your power and your options within civilization. But the moment the commuters stepped onto that rusted platform, they left civilization completely behind.
Down there, money is just useless paper and dead metal. Like if a toll booth machine rejects your dollar bill, it's an inconvenience. You try another bill.
You find some change.
Exactly. But when an ancient pulsing iron door rejects your money because it hungers for biology, that is a complete subversion of human economics.
Exactly the point. The subterranean world operates on a visceral economy.
A visceral economy.
What holds value in a space completely devoid of sunlight, society, and industry? Flesh, bone, life itself.
That is deeply unsettling.
And the concept of a calcium debt is deeply chilling because a debt implies a pre-existing obligation.
Wait, pre-existing. Like they already owed it just by being there.
Exactly. It suggests that simply by entering the space, by daring to seek a workaround through the underworld, the commuter immediately owes a tax. And the entity collects that tax from the structural scaffolding of the human body.
So the trap is perfectly set. The commuter is standing at the threshold. Behind them is the non-existent platform, the rusted tracks, and the absolute certainty that if they turn back, they will miss the life-altering deadline.
The deadline that brought them down here in the first place.
Right. Their career, their relationship, whatever vital emergency drove them down here, it will be ruined. In their panicked mind, turning back equals social and personal death.
And in front of them is the heavy iron door, pulsing, offering a way through, but demanding physical dismemberment as the price of admission.
It's a lose-lose.
The survivor is forced into a terrifying calculus. They have to weigh the abstract societal ruin of the surface world against the permanent, agonizing bodily mutilation of the underworld.
Which leads to a decision that, quite frankly, fundamentally challenges our understanding of human limits.
It does. It really does.
The desperation of the deadline entirely overrides the deep-seated biological instinct for self-preservation. And the source material is brutally stark about what happens next.
Brace yourself for this part.
Yeah, to satisfy the gatekeeper and pass through the door, the desperate commuter extracts their own molars. The text literally reads, "Every step forward costs a tooth."
We need to pause and seriously analyze the mechanics and the sheer trauma of that action.
Please do, because I really struggle to even process the reality of this. Extracting a tooth isn't like trimming a fingernail.
No.
And we aren't talking about wiggling out a loose incisor. Molars are the anchors of the human jaw.
They are massive teeth.
They are designed to crush and grind down food over a lifetime. They have multiple deep roots embedded directly into the maxillary or mandibular bone.
And they are held in place by periodontal ligaments that have incredible tensile strength.
Right. To remove one without surgical tools requires immense, agonizing tearing force.
Beyond the mechanical force, there is the neurological reality to consider. The trigeminal nerve, which is the largest and most complex of the cranial nerves, it runs directly through the jaw. It is the primary sensory nerve of the face. Disrupting it, violently tearing a tooth from its socket without anesthesia, it sends a shockwave of pain to the brain that is so severe it routinely causes people to lose consciousness from the trauma alone.
Just pass out from the pain.
Exactly.
To intentionally inflict that level of agony on yourself, it just defies reason. I mean, we've all heard historical accounts of survival situations where people resort to self-amputation.
Sure.
Like Aaron Ralston, who was trapped by a boulder in Utah and had to sever his own arm to survive. That's a famous example. But in those cases, the individual is physically pinned.
Death is right there.
Death is a tangible, immediate certainty. Our commuter wasn't pinned by a boulder. They were pinned by a schedule.
Yeah.
They dismantled their own jaw, standing in the dark, blood pouring down their face, simply because they were terrified of being late.
Which demonstrates the absolute terrifying supremacy of the psychological trap we discussed at the very beginning.
The anxiety.
Yes. The abstract threat of the deadline had been magnified by their panic into something so lethal, so total, that ripping a piece of bone from their own skull seemed like a logical solution.
That is insane to think about.
And the gatekeeper's choice of calcium, specifically teeth, is highly symbolic.
How so?
Teeth are tools of consumption. They are tools of survival. By demanding teeth, the unseen entity isn't just taking a toll. It is forcing the survivor to actively strip away their own ability to endure.
Oh, wow.
It is a systematic dismantling of the self.
Every step forward costs a tooth. It implies a continuous transaction. You don't just pay once and walk free.
No, you don't.
You are bleeding out your own structural integrity inch by inch in the dark. And that brings us to the tragic, really the darkest irony of this entire account.
The horrible realization.
The survivor endured the unthinkable. They paid the calcium debt. They broke their own body to open the pulsing iron door.
Yeah.
But the toll didn't buy them a safe shortcut to their destination.
It didn't buy them passage at all. It bought them a head start.
A head start. Because the final detail of the survivor's narrative reveals that they are now being hunted deep beneath the subway system. They traded the identity of a delayed commuter for the identity of prey.
If we look closely at the biological economy we discussed earlier, the calcium debt serves a dual purpose.
Okay, what's the other purpose?
Yes, it was an extraction of resources. But in the natural world, how do predators track their prey?
Oh, scent, blood.
DNA. By paying the toll, by violently extracting their own molars at the threshold, the survivor literally bled on the door.
They painted a target on themselves.
They handed the gatekeeper a piece of their essence. They marked themselves.
They basically rang the dinner bell. They proved to whatever lives down there that they were desperate, isolated, and most importantly, already wounded.
The nature of their ordeal undergoes a total paradigm shift the moment they cross that threshold.
Everything changed.
The life-altering deadline that caused all of this panic, it instantly ceases to matter.
It's gone.
The suffocating gridlock of the city above, a distant, fond memory. All abstract societal pressures evaporate, replaced by the most primal, ancient reality on Earth. A wounded animal running from a predator in the dark.
Running for their life.
The architecture of the shortcut was entirely a lure. The pressure of the modern world drove them directly into the jaws of an urgent hunger.
So let's pull you, the listener, back up to the surface for a moment. Let's step out of the rusted dark and take a breath of fresh city air to really look at the anatomy of this descent.
It's a lot to process.
It is. We began with something we all intimately understand, the panic of the ticking clock, that feeling of being trapped in gridlock when you desperately need to be somewhere else.
We explored how that very modern, very mundane pressure can warp the brain's survival instincts, causing a person to seek out impossible paths.
How a rational commuter could step off the map.
Right, onto a forgotten, non-existent platform, blinded to the danger by their own tunnel vision.
We looked at the terrifying reality of the subterranean infrastructure, how a dull maintenance panel can hide a heavy iron door that pulses with biological life, serving as an unseen threshold between the rational world and an absolute nightmare.
And we broke down the visceral economy of the gatekeeper.
The calcium debt.
The horrific subversion of the toll gate, where fiat currency is rejected in favor of that debt, demanding the physical dismantling of the human body.
Culminating in an agonizing sacrifice that proves that the shortcut was never a way out. It was a hunting ground. And the toll was just the scent of blood marking the prey.
It's a grim reality check.
It is. This survivor's account serves as an incredibly dark, incredibly potent warning to you. We are all guilty of looking for shortcuts.
I know I am.
We all try to hack our way through our daily gridlocks, trying to find a faster way to bypass the frustration of our personal and professional lives.
But when you choose to step off the lit path, when you decide that the rules of the surface world no longer apply to you because of your personal desperation, you make yourself vulnerable to economies you do not understand.
Economies that do not care about your deadline.
Exactly. You might find yourself in a space where the only currency accepted is your own irreversible suffering.
And as we conclude this deep dive into the hidden darkness beneath our feet, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on.
Oh, this part always gets me.
It's something that hasn't let go of me since I first opened these source materials. We know the desperate survivor had to rip out their own molars to pay this calcium debt.
Yes.
We know they are now running for their life from whatever was behind that heavy iron door. But think about the gatekeeper itself,
Think about the entity.
Think about that pulsing, rhythmic entity waiting patiently at the threshold of the forgotten tracks. If it's sitting down there, operating a visceral economy, systematically collecting the teeth and bones of desperate, panicking commuters year after year.
What is it doing with them?
Exactly. What exactly is it using them to build down there in the dark?